Welcome back to the Saints and Alumni Show right here on WVCR 88.3 The Saint. I'm your host this week, Brandon Murphy, class of 2017, Associate Director of Alumni Engagement. And this week, I am joined by head coach of the Siena men's basketball team, Coach Carmen Maciariello, also a Siena alum, class of 2001. A reminder to everyone listening today that even though it's on WVCR 88.3 The Saint, you can subscribe to Apple and Spotify podcasts and iHeartRadio. And you can subscribe to the Siena Alumni YouTube channel to check out the complete list of shows. Coach Carmen was named head men's basketball coach going into the 2019-2020 season and has since signed an extension with the program. He continues to build better Saints and bring the program to new heights, which we'll touch upon throughout the show today. But first, I want to greet Coach Carmen and welcome him to the show. I think it's the first time that you've been on here. How's everything going today?
Hey, everything is great. And yes, indeed, my first time and excited to be on here and talk about all things Siena.
And it's an exciting time of the year, right? The students have been on campus for just over a month now. We've enrolled another record-breaking class. Athletics are doing great. Expansions down at the athletic complex, which we can touch upon throughout the show. Just a really great time to be a Saint. And many listening today, they know you as the coach of Siena men's basketball, but you're also an alum of the college. And whenever we have alumni on the show, we always want to take the clock back just a little bit and kind of get a glimpse inside of what life was like back when they were on campus. So before we get into, all things, current Siena basketball 22-23, I want to take the clocks back to the early 2000s and have our listeners kind of understand how you ended up at Siena from the University of New Hampshire and kind of what that decision process was like for you to come and be a Siena Saint.
Yeah, no, it was obviously night and day. I wasn't the best student at New Hampshire. It was a state university. I had, lecture halls filled with like 300 kids, and that wasn't my forte. I really enjoyed the really intimate learning experience and environment here at Siena. I got to know my professors on a one-on-one basis. And I was really good at building relationships, and, it helped me thrive. I did well here at school, and my wife always, kind of points out that my grades were really only for 2 years of college at Siena, because when you transfer, the credits transfer, the grades don't. And I just told her I knew the system, and so I didn't really have to worry about that. And I got a fresh start. But no, so much has happened here at Siena in the growth of the college. It's been amazing. And just really enjoyed my time, the close-knit community, the togetherness you feel. And then obviously, being a student athlete here and the camaraderie just with the traditional students and the student athletes was something that's not really replicated anywhere else. And that's what we try to convey too when we recruit young men to come here, is just that love for Siena athletics. But then you're also held to a higher standard, right? You want to make sure everything you do, even when no one's looking, you're doing everything the right way with how you talk to people, with how you hold doors, with how you act in the community. I said, this is a place where you go out in Loudonville or you go out in Latham or Albany, people know you're a Siena basketball player, and that's something to be proud of.
And you talk about recruiting current players and the type of players that you want to have on your team nowadays. And our listeners might be curious of what recruiting was like back in the early 2000s. Nowadays, there's a lot of social media, a lot of interaction between U squads. What was it like for you to get recruited to come here as a transfer student? Did you have Siena in your back pocket? Are you a local alum that kind of knew of Siena? How you ended up here?
Yeah, it's actually a pretty good story. I came here to camp when I was a young kid, and, Mike Dean was the head coach. We have a montage of some of the great head coaches in Siena history in our locker room with this statement above it: "We, not I or me," just kind of talking about the selflessness needed to win championships. But no, I wasn't recruited actually by Siena. When I was coming out of high school, I was actually the Times Union Player of the Year here, and I was also a News Channel 13 All-Star. So I always give Roger Weiland a plug. He loves that. He always mentions it. But no, I was recruited by Bucknell of the Patriot League, officially visited there. But back then, the Patriot League didn't have full athletic scholarships. And I wanted to prove I was a Division I scholarship athlete. Had some other offers, and some other schools were recruiting me. Former Siena assistant Tim Capstraw was recruiting me at Wagner. University of San Diego was recruiting me. Brad Holland was the coach there at the time. Kyle Smith was his assistant, now the Washington State head coach. I chose to go to University of New Hampshire because I didn't want to go to prep school. I had enrolled actually and put a deposit down at New Hampton Prep in the prestigious NEPSAC League. And I played well in the AAU tournament out in Las Vegas, and New Hampshire wanted me to come in and not go to prep school. San Diego wanted to have me come in, and I thought it was just too far away. You know, at the time I had a younger sister who's also Siena alum, Marnie Maciariello, and now Marnie Rossetti, but she's she was 10 at the time, or not even. Yeah, she was maybe 8. I think I was 17 or 18. And so I wanted to be where my family could come watch me play. And I turned to New Hampshire, was a 3-year starter, but I wanted to win. Coach Hewitt had done a great job coming in after Bob Byer was let go. And, then I came here as a walk-on. So I actually played. I was a 6th man on a team that won 20 games my senior year for Lewis Orr. But I was a non-scholarship athlete. I was fortunate enough. My grandfather was able to put me through college. And, I was really thankful for the opportunity just to come and compete and earn a spot on a team that, was a shareholder of the regular season title.
And we have the history buffs listening today, and they all know Siena basketball, and they can tell us everything that happened in the 90s and 2000s and, the most recent history of Siena basketball. But it's also important that you have the student athletes inside the classroom. And you graduated in 2001, cum laude in School of Business with a marketing and a management degree. And we have the brand new Vibe Guider Academic Center down in the MAC for student athletes to study. And just recently, your basketball team received the program's first ever NABC Team Academic Excellence Award for achieving a 3.0 or better grade point average inside the classroom. How is that teaching the students that the education side of being a student athlete, and what goes into that philosophy for you?
Yeah, we always want to give of ourselves. We never want to be mediocre or satisfied with just doing the status quo. We want to be exceptional in all that we do, and that's, being the best we can in the community, in the classroom, and on the court. And if we're holding ourselves to the highest standard in all 3 of those phases of our life, we're going to build a foundation for success when that ball stops bouncing, whenever that may be. And those are the young men we want to recruit here. We don't really worry about, how many stars they're ranked, 3-star, 4-star, 5-star. We look at character. We look at honor and integrity. And, you have to be hungry for that knowledge, right? You have to want to have knowledge to get better and improve yourself on the court. But more importantly, you want to have to get better as a person in daily life, but then in the classroom too. And we do that. And our biggest thing is, you can always miss on the right recruits, but you can't take the wrong ones, because it'll set your program back. And I think we've done a great job with really bringing in the right young men. And we made a really point of emphasis for this season coming up, which we're really excited about.
And you're also known for bringing people onto campus to meet with your student athletes and growing them outside the classroom as men as well. And this past summer, your team was lucky enough to have an experience to go over to Italy for a 10-day trip. To play a few basketball games and to have the education component going throughout Italy as well. Can you share with the listeners today kind of how that trip came about and the meaning behind that trip for your team?
Yeah, the trip originally came about, going into my second year. We had talked about it, during my first season as head coach. And I thought with the team we had coming back with Jalen Pickett, Manny Camper, it was going to be a great segue to go to Italy, but then also to play in this Disney Wild World of Sports event down in Orlando that we're actually in this coming season. And then once COVID hit and we couldn't go anywhere or travel anywhere and not have, no non-conference games, I wanted to make sure we got it on the books for as soon as possible, because so many teams were going to try to get their foreign tours in. And I also knew by having to bring in some new players the year before, which is last season, I had a roster of many new players. I wanted to make sure we were really growing our collective unity. And I thought no better way legally through the NCAA, you can go every 4 years. And that's something too, that really coincides with Siena mission about building better Saints. Being able to go back and go to Siena, go to Assisi, obviously, the way Siena is grown as an intellectual community and how we want to talk about the mind, body, and spirit and the betterment of all three together, taking a trip where we can see some history on top of just getting to know one another so much better will help us on that path we're heading on this season.
And my brother Andy went on the student-led trip a few years back, and I'm still trying to get on the alumni trip. It's difficult for me because the alumni trip is like 5 days before alumni weekend, and I really can't take off a week prior to alumni weekend. But
Right.
Everyone that goes on that trip always comes back with rave reviews and seeing that Franciscan identity over in Assisi and Siena, Italy. And that's what's also great about working here at Siena, that Franciscan identity that we have in being involved within the community, in the capital region. And your team is also known for that, as well as the broader athletics community at Siena and the student body. Can you just kind of give a glimpse today for the audience, some of the involvement that you do within the community with your team and yourself?
Yeah, I think it just goes with anytime we can help and brighten someone's day, we want to do that. The less fortunate or someone that's, crippled by injury or disease, we really look forward to help shine a light to lift their spirits. And so anytime we can, we're involved with the North Colony School District. We're involved with the Make-A-Wish Foundation, and we're involved with, Play It Forward 518, Joe and Ryan Watroba. Obviously Joe, a Siena alum who beat cancer, is a good friend of mine, and whatever we can do. And that's actually how we found one of our honorary team members, Evan Franz, who is battling a brain tumor. And he was just honored at Coaches versus Cancer in that dinner. And we'll do a breast cancer walk here coming up, and we'll do so many different things. There's an LLS walk, too, that we'll partake in. So anytime we can help and get involved in the community, we want to do that, because I want to show our guys that it's not just about basketball, it's about life, and you're never too tired to help. You could have had a long practice, you could have had a test, but at the end of the day, that's really small in comparison to what some of these people that we're trying to help are going through. And so to just kind of step out of themselves and to realize, hey, this feels really good to give back, and it's never going to be about me. It's going to be about, us and we and who we can help.
And I think that's a great philosophy that you have as a coach and that you kind of instill within your team. And we're going to, in the next segment, kind of get into the current 2022-2023 team and kind of the upcoming schedule and the outlook on the season ahead. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back here on WBCR 88.3 The Saint. Welcome back to the Saints and Alumni Show right here on WBCR 88.3 The Saint. I'm your host this week, Brandon Murphy, class of 2017, Associate Director of Alumni Engagement. And this week I am joined by head men's basketball coach, Carmen Maciariello, class of 2001. Last segment, we talked a lot about the history of Siena basketball and really building a collective unit through the off-season and the summer months that the students are here on campus and building better Saints. Now we're just under a month away from the first men's basketball game, Monday, November 7th, traveling to Holy Cross. And our listeners today kind of want to know what the team looks like and the outlook on the season ahead. So first, I kind of want to start by expanding on what goes into building a non-conference schedule for your team. Sometimes I'm real intrigued by that non-conference schedule. I know I'm going to see Iona, I'm going to see Marist, I'm going to see Manhattan at the MVP Arena and go down there and see them play. But I'm always interested to see mostly where some of the away games are going to be for the men's basketball team and what that type of competition is. This year we're hosting, West Point, we're hosting Atlantic 10 team and St. Bonaventure coming off the 21 season. We're going back down to play Big East powerhouse Georgetown. So it's a very competitive and very exciting non-conference schedule. So what exactly goes into your mindset of piecing those games together?
Yeah, it's different. Our scheduling philosophy is kind of based on the team that we have, right? And so we have a older team coming back. We'll have 6 really super seniors or guys that have been here for multiple years. And so we wanted to make sure we're challenging ourselves before we get into MAC play. And we kind of break the season up, and obviously scheduling is a little tough because you have to really navigate, home dates, away dates. I try to have 13 home games, at least, 10 conference and then 3 to 4 non-conference. And so, technically this year, American should have came here, because when I got the job, I signed a 4-year contract. I wanted to start with a home game, they came, and then we made it kind of like a bookend series where the 4 years we played back to back, and then they return here the last year of the 4-year deal. So if it weren't for COVID, getting our 2 games that would have had me in DC the last 2 seasons canceled, that would be a home game this year. Unfortunately, we have to go there the next 2 years, which is great. I love DC. My daughter was born at George Washington Hospital. But then it's great. So like Holy Cross, we finished the series last year there, and that contract expired. So I was able to sign another 4-year deal, but they needed to start at home because they had lost a contract. And so they needed to start with a home game. So I said, okay, well, let's sign another 4-year deal. We'll start at your place, give me back-to-back at home the next 2 years, and then we'll finish the 4-year deal on the road. So it works because now, the following season, right, I'll have, or 2 years down the road, I'll have Holy Cross and American at home on top of Bonaventure. So there's already 3 home games built in. And that's a beauty. Our fans don't realize how awesome it is to get an Atlantic 10 team to play in a home and home yearly. And that's just because it's our sister school. So, you can always count on Bonaventure. Obviously, the Albany Cup coming back is fine. Our rivals are Iona and Bonaventure. It's great that Albany and us were playing in the arena because it'll be great for our fans. And then obviously, Army, Dr. Gibson loved getting that game on the schedule. So I did that one for him, and they come back. So that series will kind of expire. So I'll need to get a couple more home series started for next year, which I'm looking into. But, anytime you can play Harvard, they're always in the top half of the Ivy League. So I always look to play teams that have aspirations to win, right? And everyone says they have aspirations to win championships, but you want to play teams that have shown they can continually do that. And then, we play at Delaware, who, won the CAA last year and went to the big dance, and, American, who's always going to be competitive in the Patriot League, and you get to go back to DC, and I think that's a great city. And then our guys will go home for Christmas, but you have a conference game in there before we head down. I think we have Canisius in early December. That will be our lone conference game. So, I always try, then like you said, Georgetown. So I always want to play like the highest level, right? Big East school, same Catholic tradition, and in a big time arena, just like when we play in the MVP arena. So I always look to try to, add value to our schedule. And then the other thing is I want to play in places where we have a great alumni network, and you guys do a great job with that, hosting different events before our games. And then when I can, I want to stay in the region so our fans can travel. I'm looking forward to a great turnout, hopefully for that season opener at Holy Cross. I think that would be great to get, a couple buses of Saints fans there to really welcome in this season, but really excited for this team. Great group of guys, super hardworking, and they're hungry. Finishing 3rd last year when we were picked preseason 8th was fine, but really, being down 6 scholarship players by the end of the season in a quarterfinal game that we expect to win, it was tough. It was a kind of an abrupt end to the season, and these guys don't want that season to ever end. So we have the same expectations we do every year. We want to cut down the nets in Atlantic City.
And you talk about, the different types of teams that you try to schedule, right? They're top 5 in their conference, and they're also like-minded universities and colleges. And I think that means a lot to the fan base as well, that will play in these competitive type schools and teams that have a lot of rich history behind them. And college basketball is known for a lot of rich history within its tournaments as well. And I would say over the last, decade or so, there's just been this huge, uprising in non-conference tournaments with Thanksgiving break. And this year, Siena's lucky enough to take part in one of those ESPN tournaments down in Florida. So how did the team like Siena get approached and get invited into a tournament like this where they're playing Nebraska, Memphis, Ole Miss, Florida State? How does that happen? What's that process like?
Yeah, it's really a credit to Rich Enzer, our commissioner, and this is obviously his last year. And so we're excited to be going down there, but that was his vision. So basically the MAC is the one hosting and running that event with ESPN. And so Thanksgiving morning at 11 a.m., you can watch the Saints against Florida State, and we're going to be the only thing on. I think John Pickett, my special assistant, told me, he's like, yeah, the only other thing on for people to watch is like a dog show. So I said, well, hopefully Bernie's watching us, and we're getting ready to beat Florida State. But really exciting times. Anytime you can kind of test to see where you're at, right? Like I said, we talked about how we set up the non-conference schedule. Well, the first 4 games on our schedule, right? We're at Holy Cross, we're home, or at the MVP in a neutral site game against Albany, we're home. against Army, and then we go to Harvard. So those 4 games should get us ready. Now we can see where we're really at when we play an ACC foe in Florida State. And then, win or loss, you're either playing Ole Miss or Stanford. And then that last game, you don't know who you could play. But I was hoping we were going to play Seton Hall that first game so we could go against Shaheen Holloway because, we have a pretty good record against him.
Yeah, and that would have been a great matchup to have. I would imagine not just buses, but airplanes of alumni would be traveling down for a game like that. And you mentioned, at the beginning of the segment that our alumni travel. So I do want to do a quick plug. That first Holy Cross game, the alumni office is hosting a pregame reception at Funky Murphy's. No relation to me. It's just a great Irish pub in Worcester. So you can go to siena.edu/alumni/events to register for that Holy Cross pregame reception, and also get you a ticket to the Siena game behind the Siena bench. And we talk about that fan base, right? And the fan base is always going to show up for away games and definitely for these home games at the MVP Arena. And this year is the second annual Siena College Homecoming, built around the return of the Albany Cup and having our fans at the arena. Last year we had Delaware at the MVP Arena for homecoming, and this year we get to host UAlbany. So can you tell our listeners just a little bit behind the history of the Albany Cup and what's it going to be like to have that back at the MVP Arena?
Yeah, the first time I had to really go through the Albany Cup was my first year here working for Fran McCaffrey as his director of ops. And Levi Osby, a junior college transfer, had a big tip-in that sealed the deal for the Saints for the win. And, I was at another one. I think it was Coach Lanier's win against Albany here at the Times Union. And, to be honest with you, it's funny. I knew Doc Sowers, the legendary coach, and obviously Will Brown, who had tremendous success there for 20 years. And so I would always kind of watch it, but more times than not, I was playing overseas or I was working, but you'd always follow it. And obviously being a Siena alum, you always want to beat the state school up the street.
Exactly. And I know, I think it was 2017 was the last one that we had. And that was my senior year. And I know the students really get ready for it. And we're excited that we have a whole weekend now planned for alumni to come back. And if they're not traveling to Holy Cross, and the second game is going to be home against UAlbany at the MVP Arena. So it's going to be the first time, if they don't go to the sneak preview event, that they kind of get a glimpse at the men's basketball team for the 2022-2023 season. So what does the team look like this year, and what should our fans expect on the season ahead?
Yeah, it's a team that's kind of, built with older guys, big physical wings. Obviously Jackson Stormo in the front court, Eduardo Lane's a transfer from San Jose State, who's about 6'10". Killian Gribbins, an Irish national team player who's coming in from Choate in Connecticut. He's a 6'10" freshman. You got Jordan Kellier, Mike Bayer, Jace Johnson, Brendan Coyle, all between 6'5" and 6'7" that can kind of play the 3 and the 4. Michael Ely is a freshman who came in from Fort Wayne, Indiana by way of prep school. He's a big time athlete. Andrew Platek's back healthy, obviously a local product from Guilderland. Jared Billups is poised for a breakout year on the wing, probably one of the best defenders in the MAC, maybe even in the country when he stays engaged. And then, we have some foreign guys. We have Zach Tekin from Turkey, Sven Brigesson from Iceland. Mason Courtney's a local freshman who's actually pre-med, who's an amazing kid. He's working his tail off, and he's another guy that will have a chance to contribute. So we're deep, we're big, we're long, we're athletic, and then obviously JV McCullum, who's I think one of the better point guards in the league, and he's got a chance to be really special. This should be a big year for both sophomores, him and Jared Billups. So really exciting times. We want to get up and down. Last year with the injuries, we had to kind of play out of isolation a good amount with Anthony Gaines and some other guys. And now, this should be a team that's kind of run through Jackson Stormo and Billups and McCullum, those 3 guys. And then the other guys need to kind of fit in, but I'm expecting Jace Johnson to be 100% healthy. He was kind of, came off an injury last year and then kind of got hurt towards the end of the season too. But no, Mike Bayer's worked his tail off, Jordan Kelly, all these guys, man, they've done a great job in practices. I think the one thing that people will see is how hard we play. And, we're a physical team, and I want to make sure we're hanging our hat on that. And that's what I'm really proud of, that this group has really embraced that.
And it's a very exciting time to be a fan of Siena basketball. I always get excited when Siena Fans Relations Office sends out the season ticket package information. This year I was over in Europe and I almost missed it. And when I landed back in America, Carmen texted me, goes, "Hey, just a reminder, to renew your season tickets and get ready for the season ahead." So anybody listening today, make sure that you save the date for Siena Homecoming, November 10th through the 13th. There's a range of events from the Veterans Dinner on Thursday night at 5:30 to a pep rally on campus on Saturday. And then, of course, the return of the men's and women's Albany Cup games Saturday night down at the MVP Arena. And then Sunday at 1 o'clock, the women's play at the UHY Center. To get season tickets or to renew your season tickets, make sure to call the Siena Fans Relations Office and bookmark for the sneak preview event coming up this October as well. And good luck this season, Coach. First game November 7th, and we're looking forward to the season ahead. Thanks for everyone listening today. We'll see you next time here on WBCR 88.3 The Saint.